I want to talk about something else, which is what happened right after the standoff. A day later, I think it was a day later, I was shocked that a Nazi screaming Heil Hitler when he was arrested goes and shoots Jewish people and Christian people, thinking they were Jews, in Kansas, I believe, and that within hours, the very questionable group, the shady, very creepy group, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the creepiest group in America, a very dangerous group, in my opinion, an arm of the government, no doubt. The Southern Poverty Law Center immediately had a dossier on the Nazi. They knew who he was. They knew where he came from. They knew he had an anti-Semitic history. They had it ready to go for the press. The very same individuals who have been involved in so many shady things in the last 20 years, the Southern Poverty Law Center had it all ready to go. I said to myself, wait a minute, hey, Michael, you weren't born yesterday. Isn't it odd that the day after the government backs down from the cowboys, a Nazi is shooting up people at a Jewish center, killing 2 Christians and 1 Jew, and they have his dossier ready within minutes, or a couple hours, rather. How is that possible? So I said, wait a minute, you want to go into a conspiracy theory? I say, well, I'm not given to them. I am actually given to them now. I've been in this business long enough to tell you that I am into them. Because with Obama, it's real easy to recognize a conspiracy when you see it. As they say, if it sounds like a conspiracy, and it walks like a conspiracy, and it talks like a conspiracy, and it quacks like a conspiracy, why, then it is a conspiracy. You can call it a conspiracy if you will, but I want to know if you think there's a connection between the Nazi who killed those people at the Jewish Center a day after the standoff, and why would the government, let's take it from the top. Let's say there is a conspiracy, that he was under the control of a government agent who infiltrated his Nazi cell, and he was one of them, but he had him under mind control, and he says to him, hey, you know, John, them Jews, I think it's time to strike. And they get him the gun, and all of a sudden he drives in there, and, oh, go get them, John. In other words, there are people who are, crackpots, and they are controlled, and he didn't even know it was a government agent egging him on. The guy probably disappeared into the woodwork. That's one conspiracy. But the question is now, why would a government do that? Why would any government want to have a guy like this, a neo-Nazi, go haywire and shoot up a Jewish center a day after the standoff? And a day after that, Bloomberg comes out spending $50 million a few days later on gun control. So the answer is simple. If you want to put this together, the government wants you to see how dangerous American people are with guns, because after all, the only legitimate authority, as Mao Zedong said, is all power comes out of the barrel of a gun. So since Harry Reid learned from Mao Zedong that all power comes out of the barrel of a gun, you can't have people having the barrels of guns pointed at these government agents. So therefore, you say, okay, well, in that sense, since all power comes out of the barrel of a gun, and the U.S. government is now following Mao Zedong's edict, why not? So you release a Nazi, shoots up Jews and Christians, and then he says, oh, my, we got to control people. We got to take guns out of their hands. They're really unreliable. They're unreliable. We're going to have to seize them. Then all of a sudden, to the rescue, here comes the Lone Ranger, riding out of New York. Here he comes, galloping in from New York to save us from ourselves. The man who saved us from our sodas. The man who saved us from our hot dogs. The man who saved us from our hamburgers is now going to save us from our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, because, after all, our schmuck like him, if he got so far, must know everything. How could he spend $50 million of his own money unless he's smart? And therefore, if he's that smart, what do we care about the people? What do they know, these little idiots? They have to be laughed at by him, by Woody Allen, by Larry David, by Harvey Weinstein, by Spielberg, by Katzenberg, and you're nothing. You're garbage. You're trash. You're nothing but white trash to all of them. You see, there's a little anger in my voice today, a little rage underneath the anger, and a little something beyond the anger and the rage. I'll now open it up to you at 855-400-7282. As I say, settle back. We're flying high today. We're at 46,000 feet now. In order to save on aviation fuel, we're flying at a higher altitude after that rough start. And I'm asking you to settle back, have a drink on the plane, and the minute I come back, the captain will mingle amongst the passengers, and we'll have a conversation about all of these topics right here on the Savage Nation. It's the Savage Nation. I'm on the road again with old Willie Savage. And here we are. I mean, look, these stories right now are reaching a crescendo of importance, all coming together at once. It seems like everything's coming together at once. You got the rare earth minerals being sold to the communist Chinese by very highly placed American businessmen and legislators. I love the word Congress. I love the word Congress. I was driving down a street here in Florida called Congress Avenue. And then all of a sudden I play with words. I thought of the word Congress. What does it mean, Congress? The root is congregate, to put together. What do you mean a Congress of what? I said. Well, they're supposed to be a Congress of representatives of the American people. They're supposed to represent us, but it's not. It's a Congress of lying louts. It's a Congress of lobbyists who would sell your daughter, your little 2-month-old baby, down the toilet. They turn your daughter into a slave for a dime. If they could sell your daughter's skin to the Chinese, they would do it. Do you have any idea what evil is? Do you have any idea what evil there is on the planet? What do you think evil comes with a swastika on it again? You think it must come marching with the Horst Wessel song again? You don't think it comes with a soft voice, a pair of eyeglasses, and a bad suit? No, evil comes in many forms. I try to tell you what was going on here, but you didn't want to listen to me. Oh, the Bundy Ranch, the cattle, the grass, that we all understand. Harry Reid, they should pay a fine for they're not paying the bowel movement, the B.L.M., blah, blah, blah. That's the surface story. Then all of a sudden comes out that Harry Reid's involved in the solar plants, that all over the Nevada desert, Harry Reid's involved with solar plants. There's a great article today by Wayne Allen Root, who has filled in for me from time to time. And he's written an article today that's going to be on Fox News about that. And here we have Iran building a nuclear bomb, Russian jet fighters threatening American ships, the Russians in the Ukraine, 100 million working-age Americans no longer working, more Americans on entitlements than working in the private sector. And all of a sudden, Harry Reid is obsessed with a little ranch issue like this. He said, well, why? What's the involvement here? Well, he points out in his article about Reid's involvement is the number of green energy projects out there in the Nevada desert. The $5 billion Chinese solar project backed by Reid and his son was recently shelved. But he said what they forgot to mention is Harry Reid's involvement in multiple solar and wind projects across the Nevada desert. Right? You didn't know about that. Green energy. You know what green energy is, don't you? Green energy. Well, who benefits from the green energy companies? Who are they? Well, that's only the surface again. See, the green energy story is only another subtext to the ranch, the cattle story. But beneath the green energy story, there's another story. And that story is about the strategic metals, the rare earths, that have been sold to the communist Chinese who now have us over a barrel for rare earths, which are minerals that are required in computer chips. Silicon, you ever heard that? Silicon Valley. That refers to only one metal, silicon. I mean, one earth that's no longer rare, of course. Never was rare. Silicon's ubiquitous. But there are elements like silicon that are required in the computer chips that are rare. They're called rare earths. They're not silicon. They're extremely rare. They're found in the Nevada desert. And this portion of the desert, or close to it, was sold to the communist Chinese not too long ago. So now they control the computer chips that we need for our airplanes and our tanks and our ships. Do you understand what I just said to you? Do you think this is just hyperbole? Do you think this is just a radio show for your entertainment? Who do you think I am, Harry? What do you think I am, an entertainer? Why do you think I'm spending the best last years of my life doing this radio show? You think I enjoy the pressure I'm under? You think I love walking around with my head turned on my shoulders around my back day and night for fear that one of these whack jobs that the government will unleash will come after me? What do you think, this is a damn joke? I am trying to wake you up, you fools. You may think it's entertaining because once in a while I entertain you, because everybody needs a break. No, I'm not trying to entertain you. I'm trying to wake you up. I'm trying to wake you up. I am the true Paul Revere of American society. I don't walk around with a funny hat and sell you a children's book. I created the Paul Revere Society in 1994. I didn't make a dime off the Paul Revere Society, not 10 cents. Well, now, unfortunately for me, the time is such that everybody must become Paul Revere. Everybody must be Paul Revere. Everybody must be ready to go out to the desert at a moment's notice. Everybody should have water bags in their garage ready to put on their cars and their SUVs. Because the next time these cowards and punks in the bowel movement come out for a rancher, there should be 100,000 people out there. Men, women, and children. That's the only thing that will stop them. We may have to call in the UN to stop this government from shooting American people all over a buck. And you see what it's over? It's all over the dollar. Nothing else. It's always over money, isn't it? Now, it's one thing to be greedy. It's another thing to be greedy and a traitor. And so I'm going to show you that this is not new to American history. I'm going to demonstrate this to you with a show that was a movie, a play actually, called All My Sons. That was written by Arthur Miller, the playwright, in the late 40s about World War II and about a munitions manufacturer who was corrupt. And it was called All My Sons. It was played by Edgar G. Robinson. He played the manufacturer. And two of his sons are in it, and one of them is played by Burt Lancaster. The other son went into the Army, Air Force in World War II, and he died. His plane crashed because the engine failed. As it turns out, his father, played by Edgar G. Robinson, was the manufacturer of that engine, and he cut corners in making the cylinders for the military. And the plane, the engine blew up, and his own son died. So in some of the critical scenes of that movie, and that play first, then the movie, the son who lived confronts his father and says, "What kind of man are you?" Now, I'm going to play some of these sound bites for you in a minute because I want you to understand something. There have always been evil, greedy people in the world. There always will be evil, greedy people in the world. Going back to ancient times, the Romans had inspectors for scales because the butchers would rob the people. So the Romans had inspectors who would go around and make sure that there were fair weights and measures. Otherwise, the butcher rigged the scales. I'm going to give you a pound of mortadella, and he gave you half a pound or three-quarters. So the government had a, blah, blah, blah. So there's always been corruption and greed in the human condition. But in terms of what's going on now in the Nevada desert, we're going back to a time, because there's so much at stake, like that as depicted in the All My Sons play. Now, before I play any of this, I want to add a caveat. You're saying, well, that was good. Arthur Miller wrote that play and showed the corruption inherent in the munitions manufacturers of World War II who were making a fortune off the war at the risk and deaths of our own boys who were fighting the war. And I said to myself, where is the Arthur Miller of today? Why, there is no Arthur Miller today. Arthur Miller was a certified left-winger. Arthur Miller hated the American government. So Arthur Miller wrote the play to show how evil and corrupt the American government was then. Where is our Arthur Miller today? The answer is there is no Arthur Miller today, because anyone who would write a play that would show what's going on in the desert wouldn't get that play produced, wouldn't get to see the movie made, because Katzenberg, Matzenberg, and Ratzenberg would never produce such a movie. They control the movies, they control the theaters, they control the distribution. So even if Arthur Miller existed, you'd never see the movie. You get it? So now we're in double trouble. Because, as I said to you, there's always been corruption and evil in the human condition. But in the past, we had skilled artists who could take on these gargantuan problems and perhaps through art awaken the people. We don't have them anymore because they can't get produced. So with that as a background to the best show you probably heard all week, the most important, I'm going to start with clip 18, where the inspector says that the engine that was made was defective. Let's hear 18 right now, Eric.
Spot those cylinders, Mr. Deaver. Have you looked at them?
Why should I look at them? It's Joe's department.
Well, I thought you should know, too. They're defective.
Defective?
I'll have to reject the whole batch of them.
But you can't reject them. They've got to be shipped out on Monday morning.
The government tells me I got to inspect them, Mr. Deaver. You know that. Well, they're no good.
All right, so the inspector finds out that the cylinders for the warplanes are defective. Now, listen to clip 19.
That's right, Herb. The cylinders came out bad. Sometimes that happens. They come out bad.
Can't they be fixed? How can we...
Fixed? You mean we start from scratch on that order? By the time we do that, we're out of business.
We shouldn't have got into this, Joe. We're way over our heads. We're not big enough. We had no right to accept those contracts.
I don't remember you saying anything when I got those contracts. You looked at the profits at the bottom of the page and you thought they were plenty big enough.
You said we could handle it. I relied